Steam here. Welcome to Kinetic Cutter Club's project number 2. The project for this box subscription event is a trivet that's geared. And the idea of making it, it's really one of my favorite pieces that we've done for the Kinetic Cutter Club, is it's a nice little set of gears to play with, but you've got room to put a big cup on it. I really kind of like it a lot. So I want to show you in the first part of the video the pieces you'll be cutting out. Then we'll spend a few minutes together looking at the computer, and I'll tell you some cool things you can do if you want to adjust things, move them around, do something different. And finally, we'll do a little bit of video on how to assemble this and put it together. So the pieces you're going to see in your drawing to cut out are actually pretty simple. You're going to have a top piece like this that's got 4 teeny tiny holes in it, well, 0.112 inch holes in it. Those are the ones for your 3/8 inch screws. You'll also have a back piece that has bigger holes for the nuts to go around them, and I'll show you how that works. It's going to have little etched circles on it. That's where the, I guess I should turn this right side up. Turn little edge circles on it, so if you're going to put on bump on feet on the bottom, you'll know where to get those to put them centered. And then it has the Steamy Tech URL on it, which of course you can do anything you want to with. It also is kind of a nice surface. If you were going to give these as gifts, you could write messages on the bottom of them to people. So they'd end up with a really fun customized gift piece. So that's kind of a fun thing about it. You'll also cut 4 gears, 2 big ones and 2 small ones, and those will give us our gear set that all match together, so we can build our nice set of 4 gears that spin. So we're going to keep watching, and we're going to set up and show you a little bit about the computer drawings themselves. Hey everybody, now that we're ready on the computer, we can look at the pieces and parts of the different files and what you're going to do with them. As always, you've been provided with a link to download your projects, and we're doing them in a variety of formats. What you'll notice is that you've got them set up in a way that we're giving you inches and millimeters, and we're providing them in both Corel format, in DXF formats, in SVG formats, and in PDF format, just as we did in the last project. I trust one of those formats will be importable by your software and you'll be ready to use it. But I'm going to open it in Corel and show you a few things you can do with it in Corel. If you haven't, you can do those same things in whatever application you have as well. But we did the designs in Corel, so I'm going to show it to you here. So the first thing to notice, and I'm actually going to save this as a secondary file just so I have a copy of it. And we're going to name it Lady Steam and put it on my desktop so I have it to play with later if I want to look at edits. Is the design itself. Now remember that you're going to tell you what you need for hardware, and for hardware you need 4 3/8 inch screws and 4 nuts. If you're putting feet on the bottom, you'll also need 4 bump up feet, sort of that look like this. That's what we use. There are lots of choices there. You'll also see that we've given you 3 different colors of drawings. The internal lines should show up as red. The internal items that you're going to want to cut, that's the center gear holes, and the gear hole pieces are going to be green, and then the outer cuts are going to be blue. If you want to validate that the internal drawing was correct, you can click on the outer box, and you should see that it's 16 inches by 10 inches, which equals to that 406.4 by 254 millimeters. And I'm going to start, when I get this ready to cut, by getting rid of that and by getting rid of the extra instructions. And because on my laser we cut from the bottom left-hand corner, I'm also going to move this down to the bottom left-hand corner of the page. But you need to put it where it makes sense for your laser. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this drawing. It's actually in reasonably good shape. I shouldn't need to do very much with it, but I want to tell you about some of the options you have. First thing to notice is you've got space on the bottom. You could write something you wanted to. If I wanted to add a cute message, I could say, thanks for everything. And I could turn that into a pretty font. Now, in terms of fonts, you've got a lot of different choices when you're writing on text. We use a font that's called a single line font. And the ones we typically use come from a company called Cambam, and I have a series of those I could use. Uh, those are nice and easy and fast to cut, is the nice thing about a single line font, because it's just going to etch the lines, and you're not going to have a problem with fill in. Depending on the size you're writing, you can use other fonts, so I can leave these Arial, and then I can go in and I can change it to a hairline with no fill. And in that case, you can see that we've got a double line of text there. That's also perfectly fine. I'm going to center this way a little bit. Rotate this out. Maybe I'll rotate the whole thing so it's at an angle by clicking on it and spinning on it. The number of choices you have really is only limited by your imagination. Now, on the Celtic knot side of things, I want you to notice this set of 4 holes. Those are the holes that the screws will go through to make the gears spin. You'll notice that spacing you could do anything you wanted to with. You could take and put a ring of gears all the way around the outside if you wanted to. As long as you keep this particular hole spacing between the 2 screw holes, you'll be okay. Keep the spacing the same. Thousandths of an inch matter. Keep the spacing the same. But you can do any design you wanted to on this. You could also rearrange this, make the whole thing bigger, and leave the 4 gears the size they are on the center of the piece, and use it more as a trivet to put in the middle of your table and put things on around the edges of it. What you can do now that you've got this sample is really, really completely up to you.
They could even take the gears from the first project.
They could take the gears from the first project and put them on this project. You can do anything you want to. So these are the small holes that the screws will go to. These ones on the back give you the ability to put the nuts inside them to capture the nuts, so you don't end up with something that's sticking out the back and really scratching on your table. We usually put feet on anyway because the screws tend to be a hair longer than you really want them to be, but you wouldn't have to even with that. The idea is make the bottom of the piece flat. Once you're done with your design, you can save it and cut it. And as with the first project, I can't tell you what it takes to get it saved and cut in the format you're going to use it for. But you can do all kinds of things with it. You've got limitless choices here, what you might want to do. So have fun, go away, cut your piece. Then before you come back, make sure you sand the pieces. At the very least, sand the back of the gears and the front of the trivet. The smoother those are, the much better and smoother your trivet will work in general. And I'll talk to you as soon as you've done that and you're ready to build it. Now that you've successfully cut your 6 pieces, comes the time for creation and decoration. If you haven't done that already, make sure you've sanded at least the top of this surface and the bottom of your 4 gears, although I would hope you do more than that. You also want to do whatever decorating you want to do on the pieces. These are really fun to decorate because you've got all these good patterns going in between things that'll give you some really fun shapes to decorate and connect things to connect together or not. It's a piece that should be a lot of fun. Now, once you've done that and done your decorating, because this is meant to be a trivet, you might want to put some lacquer on it. You can use spray-on lacquer on this surface. If you do what we've been doing when we use spray-on lacquer is spraying it on, letting it dry thoroughly, and then using 1,000 grit sandpaper to sand it, and then doing that 2 or 3 times will give you a nice solid spray lacquer surface that you can put stuff on, and it's pretty protected. You could do the same thing with your gears if you wanted to, but make sure with the gears you leave the holes in the middle of them and the holes don't get caught into something. But when you're ready to assemble, I'm going to put the back outside. It's really much easier to do the gears and the top first and then add the back when you're done. So all you need to do is first decide, do I want my big gears on the corner and the little gears on the inside, or do I want to do it the other way? And you can make your choice however you want to. It's kind of a function of how much you want to have it stick out. I meant for the big gear to be on the corner when I designed it, but that's your choice again. So I'm going to start with that big gear. Because this is an even number of gears, I can put all together and have them all connect together nicely. Just put a dot of glue on the nut. Lightly screw the nut on the back. Give yourself some room. Make sure it will still smooth nicely. Still spin smoothly. That's the word. And then we'll do that again with the other 2 small gears. You may remember that gears spin opposite directions of each other, so these will spin the opposite way from the big one. And again, I'm going to make that flat, make sure I've given myself lots of room for spinning, because spinning is the best part of gears. If you want to make the screw holes smaller, so you have to screw them in, you can do that. With my 3/8 inch hardware, 0.112 seems to be the perfect number for sliding the nut through, and 0.1 seems to be a really good thickness for screwing into the wood. But remember, if you screw into the wood, you're still going to have to put a nut on the back to anchor it to make sure nothing goes terribly, horribly wrong, because it will come loose at some point. The wood is not strong enough to hold it forever. So I have placed my 4 nuts on the back, made sure that's spinning nice and smoothly. And then I'm going to flip it over, and the back is going to line up that way. You'll notice you've got your 4 holes, so it makes it really easy to decide which way this should line up. And I'm using super glue. It's what we use for most of our assembly. You can certainly use wood glue and clamp it. That would be the proper way to do that. And if you feel across the top, you'll see how nice and flat that is. So feet are certainly not required, but we like them. Makes the piece feel just a little more finished. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them from a bunch of different places. They're also available, or will be shortly, in the Steamy Tech hardware kit that's part of the Kinetic Cutter Club offerings. We expect to have that kit shipping by early July, if nothing later. We're waiting for some hardware to come in, or it would have already been available to order. So if you're watching this after July of 2020, then you can order it online. And you'll notice that even though these are self-stick feet, I always put glue on them. We discovered pretty early on that the self-stickiness is not good enough for something you're actually going to use. And now it's done, and what you'll notice is these two have been assembled two different ways. And they look really different because of the order that I put the gears on in. And that's it. You've made your second Kinetic Cutter Club project. You should be really proud of yourself at this point. And you now know enough to do all kinds of exciting things. You could fill this whole trivet with gears if you wanted to. Go dink, dink. Put 8 sets of gears out. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you.